Hi everyone, this is Amanda from the Quilting Bee in Masson, Ohio. And it occurred to me last week when I was talking to someone about doing a quick table runner that we talk a lot about, well, if you don't want to do binding, you can just do the placemat method. And for new quilters, if you've not made placemats the quick and easy way, you have no idea what we're talking about. So I thought, well, let's do a quick video and we'll put a pattern out there for an easy peasy placemat pattern. So stay tuned. So like I said, there's going to be a free pattern available on the website, and I'll do a blog post with a link to this video as well on how to do 4 basic placemats. We're going to keep it super easy, and you just need a yard of your front fabric for the placemat, as well as a yard of backing fabric and a yard of batting. You're not going to use that entire yard up, you will have some scraps, but it's going to make the job easy. So for each placemat, and that's how I'm going to talk you through this video, you need a 14-inch by 19-inch piece of your backing fabric, which for me is this yellow, a 14 by 19-inch piece of your front, so this is my placemat front, and then a 14 by 19 piece of your batting. You can cut everything out all at once if you're comfortable layering your fabrics and your batting. If not, do them one at a time, whatever you are most comfortable with. So the first thing we're going to do after we have our 4 pieces cut is make our sandwich. And this isn't going to be a traditional quilt sandwich. This is going to be, because it's the placemat method, which means we're going to turn it out. You want to first put your piece of batting down, then your placemat front. And this is a batik, so with batiks, you really don't have a front or a back side. So lay your backing, though, right side up onto that piece of batting, getting that all squared up, and then your placemat backing face down. So I'm going to tilt the camera so you can see how I've done this. So you can see I have my batting, my placemat front with the right side facing up, and my placemat backing right side facing down. So we want to square that up. Okay, so what you want to do, we like to pin a little bit. I like to pin at the corners, so just to keep all 3 layers in place. So I'm just putting a pin in each corner out of the way of where my machine needle will be, just to keep everything secure. So I've just put a pin just to keep my 4 corners secured. We're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch about 3/8 of an inch from the edge all the way around the placemat, leaving a turn gap. I like to leave mine at the bottom, and you want to leave about the width of a hand. I always forget to stop, so I'm going to mark this with a couple pins so that I remember that I'm starting and stopping. So I'm gonna use my hand and mark those 2 spots. So that means I'm going to start my stitching to the left of my turn hole. I'm going to stitch about 3/8 of an inch from the edge all the way around the entire edge of my placemat, coming back to this pin again, so I leave my hole, and you want to back tack or back stitch at your starting and ending points. So let's go stitch. So right now I have a 1/4 inch foot on my machine, but we want to do about 3/8 of an inch, so a little bit bigger. So what I'm going to do, this 1/4 inch foot has a little notch in it. Now the joy of placemats is they're placemats. We're turning these out. So I'm going to, instead of using my 1/4 inch mark here, I'm just going to take it to this edge, and that should be about 3/8 of an inch. So you can see I'm at my pin to the left of my turn hole. So I'm going to pull that out to make sure I don't hit it. And again, you want to back tack at your starting and ending points. Just a couple. And then we're just going to stitch all the way around. So as you come to your corner, you're going to see in the instructions we say keep your needle down. So I'm going to pull this corner pin out that's been holding these layers so I don't run into that. I'm going to slowly come to about 3/8 of an inch from this edge. So I'm going to stop it right about where my nail tip is. And keeping the needle down, lift your foot so your needle is still down, so your needle is holding those 3 layers. Turn the placemat, and sorry about that. You can see if you went far enough, because when you put your foot down, you should be again right at the edge. If for some reason you put the foot down and you have more fabric, you can simply raise your foot, turn it back, progress it just one more needle turn, and then pivot the project. So put your foot down and keep on stitching. Okay, so here we are at the last corner. So we're going to bring this down. Back stitch. And trim our threads. All right, so we have stitched all the way around, leaving our turn hole so we can turn the corners out. So before the next step in the pattern, which talks about clipping your corners, what Mom and I like to do is make sure we've caught all 3 layers. So you can either turn the whole thing out, or if you just put your hand in and run your finger across those edges to make sure you caught all 3. That's why we like to use the 3/8 of an inch, because it ensures, you know, things shift a little bit. If you look at my backside, you can see there where I start off pretty wide and then it got a little narrow. So you just like to make sure you caught all 3 layers. Once you can confirm that, we're going to nip off these corners, being careful to not go through our seam allowance. So we just want to nip off those edges. So I'm just going to use scissors. And again, you're just nipping it off, but keeping that seam allowance. What that lets you do is when you turn it, you get a nice corner. I actually like to take it one step further, and I will actually cut a little bit on either side of that corner so that you get even less bulk there. So that's what I'm going to do to all 4 corners. Nipped all 4 corners and trimmed some of that bulk out. So now it's time to turn. So again, going back to your turn hole, what we're turning out are our 2 layers of fabric. Leave the batting as it is. So easiest way, just get your hand in there. I go to that nearest corner and pull it out. Get your hand back in there, and this is where you want to, I can use the tip of my fingernail. If you don't have sturdy nails, you might want to use a little turning tool. Be careful using you know, a pen or a pencil or anything like that, because you could poke through your seams. So you want to do a gentle turnout of your corners. But upon turning out, you'll have your front, your back, your batting is in between, and you still have this little turn hole, but we'll get to that in a second. So once you've got everything turned and you're happy with your corners, I'm pretty happy with these. There's a step in the pattern where we tell you want to sort of roll and smooth out your edges to make sure you're not going to catch any of your top fabric on the bottom as we stitch around, or the backing on the top of the placemat. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. This roll method, you're going to get your fingers right at that seam edge, and you actually want to pull it down a bit and flatten it with your finger. Just don't worry about that turn hole yet. We're just going around all 4 edges and sort of bringing that up and really giving that a good finger press on that seam. So we just want to flatten that seam out. Okay, so we're back to that front side. So now what you want to do is just press that edge and see how that gets nice and crisp, so that when we go to seam around, yellow's on the back, the blue is on the front. That's going to help ensure that these layers stay exactly where we want them to be when we stitch around this top. So I'm actually, after I get done finger pressing, I'm going to take this to the iron, give it a nice dry hot press, just because I'm a little neurotic about those seams. So again, this might feel like overkill, but if you've ever had the edge of a placemat turn on you, you'll understand. I just like to press because you can see even right there, see how that's turning up a bit? We don't want that. We want to make sure that the back stays where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to repress that edge. And again, I'm sort of just pressing. You're not ironing. We're just pressing to make sure those edges stay where we want them to be until we get them stitched around. So now it's time to deal with our turn hole. There's a couple methods you can do. What we prefer to do, we being me, Judy and I, what we do, you can sort of see like I would do a package. I'm tucking in those 2 layers first to get them lined up with the rest of the edge of the placemat. I'm going to give that a quick press just to keep those layers in place, right where I want them to be. Don't scorch your fingers. We use light steam-a-seam too. Comes on a roll. You want to tear off a piece about the size of your turn hole there. What you do is, so it's got a sticky side and then the backing side. So you lay it on with that backing still on there on one of your pieces. I just always end up using my backing. And you want to give that a quick press that activates that glue so it will stick to that fabric. Once you've got that on there, you can peel back that backing. Maybe. There it goes. So that leaves the stick on that fabric. So you want to line it up again, following your seam line of your placemat, and just give that a good press. Again, I should probably have steam in here, but I don't. So giving that a nice press. So with that hole now closed, we're going to go back to the machine. And I'm actually going to give this 2 stitch borders, if you will. I'm going to do the first one just a scant 1/8 of an inch. I want to make sure I catch my turn hole, so I'm going to come really close to this edge, stitch all the way around. I'm going to come back then and go about 1/2 inch again, just to give it a double stitch border. And it just helps, that just helps give the placemat a little bit more structure before we do any kind of quilting on it. So you want to make sure the thread you're using then is something that coordinates with at least your placemat top. These technically are reversible, so you want to think about that as you put your colors together. So let's go stitch. So again, I'm not taking my 1/4 inch foot off my machine, so I'm just going to eyeball this. So if I know this is a 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to try to keep the edge of my placemat halfway in the middle of that 1/4 inch mark. I'm also notice I'm not starting right in the corner. I'm starting a little bit from the edge. So I'm just gonna go forward a couple stitches. Again, back tack. And using the same method, when I get down to a corner, I'm gonna leave the needle down, bring my foot up, rotate, and go all the way around. Okay, so I'm coming to that corner. I'm gonna go one more, give it a little goose, rotate, bring it around, put that foot down, and I'm still right in the middle, so I'm gonna keep going and do all 4 corners. All right, so I've already come around one time, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. So this next time, I think what I'm going to do is line this far edge of my foot up to my stitch line and go around again just to give it a second border, because we're not binding these. These are basically self-binding because we use the turn method. If you are going to do any kind of quilting on it, you might want to grab yourself your ruler and make some lines with a marking pencil of some sort. So we have all kinds of different markers. There are heat-soluble pens that go away if you iron them, little marking pencils, chalk, etc. We carry a variety here in the shop, and you can also find them online. So what I'm going to do, just to ensure that I actually make it corner to corner, is just use my ruler real quick and draw a line. So what I'm going to do, and I think I've got it almost all in the whole shot, is take my ruler and just lay it from corner to corner on my placemat. And I'll post a picture in the pattern. I'm just going to draw a couple lines from my stitch lines, and I'll show you once I hold it up. Because you don't really want to go through the border lines that you've already stitched on there. We're just quilting it quickly from corner to corner of that second border. So using just this little marking pencil, you can see I've drawn some light lines, again, not from to this corner, but just to the inside corner of my second border stitch. So I'm going to stitch that up real quick. So as you can see, all I have to do is follow my line. I can even do this while holding a camera. So now that I've stitched from corner to corner, you can still see those chalk marks a bit. But if you run your hand over them, maybe take a damp towel, depending on how hard you press. Then you can get those marks off, and you have yourself a quick little quilted. And again, this is just to give it some more structure. And there's your placemat.